This next story reminds me of an episode I could have seen on The Twilight Zone. Imagine you're driving down the road alone when suddenly you feel a bump. You think you've hit somebody. So you pull your car over and check, but you find nothing. A little while later, you feel another bump. Again, you think you've hit a person. Once again, you pull over. This time, you actually get out of the car. Your heart's pounding. You look around. Still, you find nothing. Now imagine this happening every time you get behind the wheel, over and over again. But this is no episode out of The Twilight Zone. For many people, this is very real. Case in point, Lois Pyle of Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
There was nobody there, right?
No, Jared.
You sure? But it was big. I mean, it was a big dip. Are you sure? I mean, it was a big bump.
Watching Lois Pyle drive is a surreal experience.
There's bumps, right? There's bumps. You couldn't see that guy is still there.
Yes, he's still there.
For the past 10 years, whenever Lois hits the road, she also thinks she's hitting people on the road. I truly believe this. Lois is constantly looking around, checking the mirrors, anticipating a catastrophe that never happens.
I don't believe it's possible to go from my house up to store without having a body under the wheels of my car.
Lois's real problem is not her driving. Instead, Lois suffers from an illness, a form of obsessive-compulsive disorder I'd never heard of. It's called harming obsession, and in her case, Lois is afraid she's going to run someone over. Physically, what happens when you're driving down the road and you think you hit someone?
Honest to God, I don't think that it could be any worse than if I had hit somebody, because I shake literally like a leaf. I'm gripping the steering wheel in a death grip. I mean, you would think that, there's a woman sprawled across my hood.
For Lois, a 10-minute drive to the market can take hours. I couldn't believe this either. Take a look at what Lois does. She actually turns around, goes back to see if there's a body lying in the road. She showed us how sometimes she even gets out of the car and looks underneath it. She does this over and over again, looking for a victim who doesn't exist.
It's like you're at war within your brain. I would tell myself there's nobody there, but it wouldn't work.
I banged my head on the steering wheel trying to force myself, literally, don't do this.
Richard DeLude has battled his harming obsession since he was 19.
At my worst periods, I could do 25 turnarounds in a matter of an hour, 2 hours.
And watch what happens when Richard tries to navigate his car through the school zone.
We're approaching this intersection right here with a bunch of children on the corner. This is a very highly intense for me right now. Very tough. My heart rate's going, very nervous, very scary. I have to check. I try to resist. I went maybe 6 blocks. I can't take it no more. I got checked. And I got it because these kids are. I have to check.
Richard is so convinced he might have hit someone, he gets out of the car to check the intersection.
When I'm getting out of the car, automatically my perception is that I hit someone.
But wouldn't you see the body lying there on the street?
At that point, when your anxiety level is so sky high, you're not thinking rationally. You're thinking totally irrationally. All you're thinking about is the guilt that you hit someone.
Understand that OCD is the doubting disease.
Dr. Bruce Hyman is a psychologist who specializes in obsessive-compulsive disorders, OCD. He says there may be as many as 1.5 million sufferers of harming obsession. Why, after the third or fourth or 20th time, 100th time going around looking for someone they hit, not finding them, why don't they realize there was never anybody there?
The thought is, maybe this is the one time that I've actually done it, which in a sense negates all the previous experiences of turning around and finding nothing wrong.
And that's exactly what's going on in Richard's mind. Here, he stops again, right in the middle of the road, to check for victims. You look in the street, you look in the bushes. How long does it take for you to satisfy yourself?
It could take maybe 20 minutes before I finally give up and let it go.
When that patient does a turnaround, goes back to the site where they think an accident occurred, they get this sense. Okay, that sensation of relief feeds the whole sequence of behaviors that lead up to it.
The people who are waiting for you to arrive somewhere, to your
Yeah.
boss who is waiting for you to get to work, what do you say to them?
You have to make lives. I got a flat tire. I ran out of gas. My car stalled and I couldn't start it.
And this affliction can take a heavy toll. Richard says his OCD destroyed his 2 marriages and later pushed him to attempt suicide. Lois became housebound and totally dependent on her husband and son to ferry her around. It became her family's little secret.
They knew, I mean, there was just no two ways about it. They knew they better not dare say a word, and they knew to make excuses for me too.
I didn't want to tell anyone. I thought they would think there was something seriously wrong with me and I'd be locked up.
Donna Hedman of Orange County, California, also suffers from harming obsession. But it's not mowing down pedestrians that Donna obsesses about. It's hurting children, her own children.
I really began to think I was possessed, that I had a demon.
Donna says it started 18 years ago, one day soon after her first child was born.
And I was sitting, rocking the baby in front of the fireplace, and the fire crackled a little bit, and I looked over at the fire, and then I looked back at the baby, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, came this image of myself just picking him up and hurling him into the fire, just tossing him in. I started to weep. I mean, I just started crying hysterically, and I thought, my God, how could I have thought that?
And could you ever picture your son dead? Did you want him dead?
No. God, no.
Donna prayed her harming thoughts would go away, but they didn't. In fact, when her daughter was born 8 years later, they got worse. Donna was afraid to share what was happening to anyone but her husband and her mother. Desperate, she turned to her priest for help.
I actually asked him to either perform an exorcism for me or arrange for some priest who did those to do it. And I was serious.
Thought the devil was inside you.
I did.
Then one day, Donna began describing her symptoms to a social worker.
As I was talking to her, I could just see on her face, it was like a light was going on. It's like her eyes were getting bigger and bigger. And she said, you know, Donna, I think you have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Donna was referred to Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz of the UCLA Medical Center, who literally wrote a book on OCD called Brain Lock. How can you be so sure that they aren't going to harm somebody?
This has been an extremely well-studied subject. These people do not act violently. The risk is less than a random group of normal people.
Using PET scans, Dr. Schwartz has been able to show photographically that the brain of someone with OCD is different. The patient actually has a chemical imbalance. Their brain is overactive. You can see that side by side, the scan of the OCD brain is more lit up, more hyperactive compared to the normal brain.
The structure in the brain that is not working properly in obsessive-compulsive disorder is very much part of the same brain mechanism that is broken in Parkinson's disease. So you can literally think of these intrusive thoughts as being like a tremor in your thoughts instead of a tremor in your body.
And that's exactly how Donna felt. What she discovered was that she couldn't just make the bad thoughts go away. In fact, the harder she tried, the worse it got. Dr. Schwartz likens it to a Chinese finger trick.
When you put your finger in this device, this fiendish device, and say, now take your fingers out of it, you try to pull, the harder you pull, the tighter it gets. That's exactly the position that people in obsessive-compulsive disorder are in. The more they try to make the thought go away, the tighter the thought gets, the more it intrudes into their mind. To get the thought to go away or to learn to live with the thought, they have to relax and sort of work around it. And
So Dr. Schwartz tells patients not to fight the nonsensical thoughts.
this is just an obsession. This has no meaning. This has nothing to do with me.
Just ignore them. Tell yourself it's not you, it's your OCD. Eventually, the bad thoughts will go away on their own.
Now you record this, read it with feelings.
Now, to help Donna, Dr. Schwartz has her record her harming thoughts onto a loop tape. Later, Donna plays the tape back. It's obviously painful for her to listen to her own vicious inner thoughts. It's called exposure therapy, and it's a relatively new treatment.
Your brain is like a broken tape recorder when you have OCD. It's simply playing this foolish thought, this tape, over and over and over again until they actually get to the point where it no longer causes them anxiety or distress.
What are your thoughts right now?
Just nervous.
Back in Florida, Dr. Hyman has also embraced this exposure therapy philosophy. But instead of a tape recorder,
Straight.
he puts his patients in the one situation they fear the most.
And do it. Great. Okay.
Running things over.
One of the aspects of the treatment is to help them get the idea that this is how it actually feels if you were to run over somebody, run into something.
And that's exactly what Dr. Hyman's patients do. They crash into a mannequin and a baby carriage. And Lois, going through exposure therapy for the first time, runs over a sandbag. Like an addict fighting withdrawal, Lois desperately wants to stop the car and make sure the sandbag wasn't a person.
What's happening?
I need to stop. I need to look. I need to look.
Can you restrain that urge?
I mean, I want to put the car in park and I want to go look.
Sure. Talk back to it. Argue. Fight with it. Get mad at it. Tell it to shut the heck up.
I
Tell
do.
it to shut up.
You don't know that you don't have body parts under the car. You don't know that you don't have body intact. You could, it's such a simple thing to get out and look.
Sure.
Dr. Hyman wants Lois to accept her imaginary hit and runs for what they are. Imaginary. It's just the OCD, he tells her, trying to crowd her brain. Eventually, Lois's urge to check diminishes. She leaves the parking lot without ever looking back. What's the prognosis here for these people?
I would say people with OCD can improve significantly within a 3 to 6 month period of time.
So Lois, in 6 months from right now, could be driving by herself again?
It's my hope.
When you think about what life will be like normal again, what do you think about?
Well, I think about finally not being a burden to my family, and most of all, I'll be free of that guilt, that ungodly guilt that comes with OCD, that I'm responsible for everything that goes on in the world. Back in California, Donna Hedman says that with the help of her therapy, she too has scored a victory against her OCD demons. When was the last time you had harming thought about your daughter?
Oh, maybe just recently. I mean, maybe a week ago.
And what happened when you felt that thought? It's different than before.
I thought, that's an OCD thought. It's because I have a brain disorder. And I've learned to talk back to it, get back to the moment. If I say to the OCD, you're not going to ruin this for me. You're not going to have the next half of my life.
In the 9 months since Bill Ritter first brought us this story, Donna has continued to improve. Her harming thoughts occur less frequently, and they're much milder than they used to be. As for Lois, she can now take short trips to the store by herself. And one day, her doctor believes, she'll be able to go anywhere she likes.